Today, we're tackling one of the most overlooked survival problems in the post-apocalyptic landscape: breathing. Remember breathing? That thing you used to do automatically without thinking about it? Well, congratulations, because now every inhale is a thrilling game of, is this going to kill me slowly? Here's the thing about the wasteland, friends. The air out here is absolutely disgusting. We've got ash storms rolling through every other Tuesday. There's dust that tastes like regret and smells like burning tires. Mysterious particulates floating around from collapsed buildings. Pollen from mutated plants that would make your pre-collapse allergies look like a gentle tickle. And don't even get me started on the smell near the old industrial sector. I walked through there once without protection, and I'm pretty sure my nose filed for divorce. The point is, clean air is now a luxury item, right up there with fresh water and conversations that don't eventually lead to discussing cannibalism. So today, we're going to build a respirator. From trash, because that's what we do here. We take garbage and make it into slightly more useful garbage. Will this respirator protect you from nerve agents? Absolutely not. Will it stop radiation? No, that's not how any of this works. But will it keep you from inhaling a lungful of concrete dust during a collapse? Probably. And in the wasteland, probably is basically a guarantee. So let's dive in. All right, let's talk materials. The beautiful thing about building survival gear in the apocalypse is that everything is free now. The downside is that everything is also terrible, but free and terrible beats expensive and unavailable. So let's work with what we've got. First up, plastic bottles. These are everywhere, and I mean everywhere. Pre-collapse humans apparently couldn't go for feet without discarding a bottle. Our ancestors' plastic addiction is now our respiratory salvation. You want bottles that are intact, no cracks, no weird holes. 2-liter soda bottles are ideal because they're big enough to work with, and the plastic is sturdy. But really, anything from a sports drink bottle to a larger juice container will work. Just avoid anything that previously held chemicals. If the label says bleach or industrial cleaner, that's a hard pass. Trust me on this one. Next, fabric. Old t-shirts, bandanas, strips of curtain material, that one sock you found that you really hope was just used for feet. Cotton is your friend here. It's breathable, it traps particles, and it's everywhere. Avoid synthetic materials if you can, because they don't filter as well, and some of them get weird when they're wet. And you will get sweaty in this thing. Oh, you will sweat. Now, the secret weapon, charcoal. If you've ever made a fire, you've made charcoal. Those black chunks left over after your campfire dies, that's activated carbon's less sophisticated cousin. It's not as effective as the real thing, but it still absorbs odors and some airborne nastiness. Crush it up into powder or small chunks. The more surface area, the better. Just maybe don't breathe it directly while you're crushing it, because that would be deeply ironic. Sand is another useful filter medium. Clean sand, not the kind that's mixed with unknown substances. Fine sand works like a pre-filter, catching larger particles before they hit your other filter layers. Think of it as the bouncer at the club, keeping out the obvious troublemakers. And finally, scavenged filters. This is where creativity comes in. Coffee filters, dryer sheets, those little silica packets from shoe boxes that say, "Do not eat," as if that needed to be clarified, HVAC filters from abandoned buildings, air filters from dead vehicles. Anything that was designed to stop stuff from getting through can be repurposed. Just use your judgment. If it smells like mold or death, probably skip it. Now, before we get to the design that actually works, let me tell you about some of my earlier attempts, because apparently I had to learn everything the hard way. Prototype 1, the colander helmet. Yes, I put a colander on my head and wrapped fabric around it. My logic was that colanders have holes for airflow, and I could just filter those holes. The results were exactly as effective as you'd expect from wearing post-draining equipment on your face. I looked like a post-apocalyptic chef having a breakdown. The holes were too big, the fabric kept slipping, and a fellow survivor asked if I was trying to summon aliens. 0 out of 10, would not recommend. Prototype 2, the bucket method. I cut a hole in a bucket, stuck my face in it, and figured the enclosed space would somehow filter air through the seams. It did not. What it did do was trap my own carbon dioxide, fog up immediately, and make me hyperventilate while looking like a discount spaceman. I also couldn't see anything and walked directly into a wall. The bucket cracked. My dignity cracked further. Prototype 3, The sock mask. This one seems so simple. Just put a sock over your face. Cotton, breathable, already shaped like a tube. Perfect, right? Wrong. So wrong. Because I did not adequately consider that this sock had lived a life. A full, eventful life. And now that life was pressed directly against my breathing holes. I dry heaved for approximately 45 seconds and then had to throw the sock into a fire for everyone's safety. Lesson learned, laundering matters, even in the apocalypse. Prototype for the plastic bag situation. I don't want to talk about it. It was brief. It was stupid. Someone had to intervene. Moving on. Okay, so after my string of disasters, I decided to actually think about the problem like a scientist, instead of a desperate person grabbing random objects. Revolutionary, I know. Here's the basic concept. Air filtration works by making air pass through materials that trap particles. The key word there is pass through. The air still needs to get to your lungs, just without all the bonus debris. This is where most improvised designs fail. Either they block too much air and you suffocate slowly while technically being protected from dust, or they let too much through and you might as well just breathe normally. Multiple layers are your friend. Think of it like security checkpoints. Your first layer is the coarse filter, catching big stuff like visible dust, ash flakes, and whatever that floating thing is. This can be a loose weave fabric. Then you have your fine filter layer, usually denser fabric or something like a coffee filter, catching the smaller particles. And then, if you're feeling fancy, you add your charcoal layer for odor absorption and chemical filtering. Each layer does a job, and together, they create a gauntlet that airborne nasty has to run through. Now, breathability is crucial. You need to be able to actually pull air through this thing without feeling like you're trying to breathe through a mattress. This is why material choice matters. Cotton breathes, coffee filters breathe. 6 inches of packed dirt does not breathe. You want resistance, not blockage. If you seal it up too tight, congratulations, you've built a very elaborate suffocation device. The seal around your face matters too. All the filtration in the world doesn't help if dusty air is just sneaking in around the edges. The air should be going through your filter, not around it. This is why goggles and masks work together in real professional setups. But since we're working with trash, we'll settle for mostly sealed, mostly filtered, mostly not dying. All right, so I built a few semi-reasonable prototypes based on these principles. A bottle with cutouts, layered filter material secured inside, straps made from old shoelaces. Looked ridiculous. Felt like progress. Time to test. Test 1, the dust pile challenge. I found a lovely pile of concrete dust from a collapsed building, very fine, very eager to get into lungs. I put on my respirator, took a deep breath, and disturbed the pile. And I did not immediately cough. This was huge. I was breathing and not dying. Well, not dying faster than usual. I did taste a slight chalky aftertaste, which means some microparticles were getting through, but compared to bare-faced breathing, this was a triumph of science. Test 2, the smelly plant test. There's this bush near my camp that smells like a combination of rotting onions and sadness. I don't know what it is. I don't want to know, but it's perfect for testing odor filtration. First breath, without the mask, immediate regret. Eyes watering, life choices questioned. Second breath, with the mask, still unpleasant, but manageable. The charcoal layer was doing something. Not miracles, but something. I'd rate it as still smells bad, but now I can stay conscious. Test 3, the soot swirl. I found a burned-out building with lots of loose soot in the air. Black particles everywhere. This is the real-world test, because this is what you're actually going to encounter out there. I walked through with my respirator on, spent about 5 minutes breathing in that environment, and when I took the mask off and blew my nose, the result was only slightly gray instead of completely black. Partial success. My lungs are probably only slightly compromised instead of severely compromised. Test 4, the panic breathing test, because in a real emergency, you're not going to be calmly inhaling like you're doing yoga. I ran around in circles until I was gasping, then tried to breathe through the respirator. And this is where I discovered a design flaw. Under heavy breathing, my initial filter layers were collapsing inward, partially blocking the airflow. I got lightheaded and had to rip the mask off while wheezing dramatically. Back to the drawing board on structural support. Okay, serious talk for 30 seconds, and then we'll go back to joking about socks. This kind of improvised respirator has real, significant limitations. It is not going to protect you from toxic gases. Carbon monoxide, chlorine, ammonia, whatever chemical nightmare might be lingering around old industrial sites. None of this trash mask is going to help with that. If you smell something truly chemical and awful, your move is to leave that area immediately, not to trust your bottle cloth creation. It's not going to stop viruses or bacteria in any meaningful way. If there's some kind of post-apocalyptic plague situation, this is not your solution. It's also not going to handle anything radioactive, because that's a whole different level of problem that requires actual equipment and probably a bunker. What it will do is reduce your exposure to particulate matter. Dust, ash, pollen, debris from collapses, general air quality nastiness that builds up in your lungs over time and causes long-term problems. Think of it as harm reduction, not harm prevention. You're not creating a perfect barrier. You're creating a better-than-nothing barrier. And in a world where nothing is often the alternative, better than nothing is actually pretty good. Also, these filters will clog over time. You'll notice breathing getting harder. That means the filter is working, but it also means it needs to be replaced or cleaned. Shake out the fabric, replace the charcoal, swap in new material. Maintenance is part of survival. All right, after all the failures, all the testing, all the deep breaths of questionable air, here's what actually works. Sort of, mostly. Look, it's better than a sock on your face. Okay? Take your 2-liter bottle, cut off the bottom third. This creates your main chamber. Then cut a hole in what was the bottom of the bottle, sized to fit over your mouth and nose. Sand down any sharp edges, unless you want a respirator, that also doubles as a face scoring device. Inside the chamber, you're going to create a filter stack. First layer, nearest to your face, a piece of cotton fabric, like cut-up t-shirt material. This is your comfort layer and catches the biggest particles. Second layer, a coffee filter or similar fine mesh material. This catches the medium stuff. Third layer, a thin pouch of crushed charcoal wrapped in more fabric, so you're not just inhaling charcoal dust because, again, irony. Fourth layer, at the air intake, another cotton layer to pre-filter incoming air. Secure all of this inside the bottle chamber. You can use wire, string, or whatever fastening material you've got to hold the layers in place. The key is that they shouldn't collapse when you breathe in, so give them some structural support. Maybe a small plastic grid from something else, a piece of mesh, whatever keeps the layers stable. For the seal around your face, wrap the intake edge with fabric or foam to create padding. This helps it seat against your face without gaps. And run straps around the back of your head to hold it in place. Old shoelaces, strips of fabric, whatever you've got. Does it look ridiculous? Absolutely. You look like you're wearing a bottle as a face accessory, which you are. Fellow survivors will stare. Some will laugh. But when the dust storm hits and they're coughing up their lungs while you're breathing filtered air like a sophisticated wasteland intellectual, who's laughing then? Still them, probably. But at least you can breathe while they do it. And there you have it. Survivors. One improvised respirator, assembled from garbage, tested in conditions that my pre-collapse doctor would have definitely advised against, and proven to be approximately functional. Will it save your life? Maybe. Will it extend your life by reducing cumulative lung damage? Probably. Will it make you look like a resourceful survivor or an unhinged person who glued trash to their face? That depends entirely on the observer's perspective. Here's the thing about surviving in the wasteland. Perfection is dead. It died with regular showers and food that wasn't scavenged. What we've got now is good enough, and good enough is actually amazing when the alternative is nothing at all. So build your ugly respirator. Test it in the mildly hazardous air of your local ruins. Replace the filters when they clog, and remember, in the apocalypse, you don't need clean air. You just need a mask that's slightly less awful than breathing raw dust. This has been the Wasteland Workshop. I'm going to go wash the charcoal off my hands now, assuming I can find water clean enough to waste on hygiene. Until next time, survivors. Keep breathing, or don't. I'm not your supervisor.